Well, amen. Good to be with you today. The lesson today, I apologize for the crudeness of the background. I'm not in my office. I am in a hotel room up in Farmville, Virginia, preaching a meeting this week. But this is the fifth lesson in our study on Christian psychology. Probably won't be with you too long today. Just give you a few thoughts about the sanguine. Today's lesson is on the strengths of the sanguine. We've been studying the four personalities: choleric, sanguine, phlegmatic, and melancholy. And I talked to a couple of the students at church this past weekend, and they said how much they enjoyed the book that we're studying by Tim LaHaye on spirit-controlled temperament. And so we're going to look at the sanguine today in this lesson, his strengths. Next lesson, lesson 6, we'll look at the weaknesses of the sanguine. And the sanguines are well, they just add life to the world. It's what they do. And so when I was a child, teenager, I leaned more on this end. I was more of a majority of my personality was more sanguine. As I got older and in the ministry for the last 27 years, choleric that I had as a secondary has become my primary. Just being, I guess, growing up, getting more mature, finding out that the weaknesses of a sanguine can get you in trouble. And so I think that kind of pushes you away. But my wife sometimes, she said, man, I miss some of that of your youth, how crazy you were and wide open. But I want to look at the strengths today. We're different, all right? Everyone's different. People are different. We've all got a different fingerprint. And yet everybody has their own place. And they need to find their mold. They need to find where they need to be in life and how in their lane in life of what their strengths and weaknesses are and how they can make a difference. Temperaments are what you're born with. It's your nature. It's what your personality is. It differs from it's a temperament is something that can be changed over time with life experiences. Personality and temperament are interchangeable. You need to understand that. But temperament is unique in that it is your neurological characteristics. Okay, personality, your temperament really is what you are. You can work on it, but it's still going to come out. Okay, and that's why the Spirit of God is so important. It's like left-handed versus right-handed. You'll always have a preference. I'm right-handed. But I want to use my left hand more, but my go-to is my right hand. It's just a natural thing, and that's the same way with temperament. You need to understand that. And a lot of times we try to force ourselves to be something that we're not, and that doesn't mean that we can't ask God to help us to be the best we are, but you're still going to be what you are. Temperament is just it's your natural natural reflex. Okay, it's your natural spontaneity. It's your natural organization and decision making, and it always will be. And you can train yourself to be more organized in your temperament. You can train yourself to be more efficient in your temperament, but you can't alter what you are. If you do, you're going to be miserable. Folks need to know who they are. They need to know their strengths. They need to know their weaknesses. And then they need to learn how to be the best that they can be. And also, we don't need to be so critical and condescending of other temperaments because everyone has their strengths and everyone has their weaknesses. And so we need to understand that. Some people live with the attitude of this. We have a strange and wonderful relationship. You're strange and I'm wonderful. But the truth is that's not the case. There are things about the choleric that are wonderful. There are things about the choleric that are not so wonderful. There are things about the sanguine, the phlegmatic, the melancholy that are great, wonderful. And then there's things that are just horrific. And so we need to understand that. Now, there are, we talked about choleric, and now we're talking about the sanguine. Choleric, melancholy, sanguine, and phlegmatic. I told you the melancholy. I want you to think about this, and I want you to write this down. This is number 1 on your homework. I'm gonna talk about these 4 temperaments, these 4 personalities, as a dog. Okay, if a sanguine were a dog, what would he be? If a melancholy were a dog, what would he be? If a choleric were a dog, what would it be? Because you can learn a lot from animals. I was thinking about this and reading and studying different writers, what they wrote. A melancholy, which makes up 45% of the world, they're the Saint Bernards of the world, okay? The servants. They're the ones that are going to be by your side, standing there with you, servant. That Saint Bernard is just a loyal dog. So write that down. Melancholy is the Saint Bernard of the world. And then you've got the choleric. What dog would you think? A choleric is, which makes up about 5 to 7%. The choleric is the Rottweiler, okay? I mean, they're the ones in charge. You take a Rottweiler, man, they're going to be the dog in charge, okay? And so that's the choleric. Then there's another one. You've got the phlegmatic. What's the phlegmatic? The phlegmatic, they make up 8 to 10%, and we could classify them as the golden retriever of the world because they are the ones that always seek a goal. They're the ones who's everybody's friend, everybody's buddy. They're going to make you feel good about yourself. They're going to yield in the relationship they have with you. They're the golden retriever. And then you got the sanguine. And the sanguine is what we're going to say. They make up about 40% of the population of the world. And they are the Jack Russells, okay? Because the sanguine is loud and wide open, and the sanguine is one that's going to be just... I think about that old cartoon. Remember the cartoon with the big old bulldog? I think it might have been, was it Spike? Was that his name on the cartoon? And the little fella jumping around at his heels. That's the sanguine. The little guy's the sanguine. The bulldog, the big old husky, that's the choleric. And sanguines are the cheerleaders of our society. But here's the thing: you need to be careful. If you're a sanguine, be careful, because they really like to be the cheerleader for their own selves. And so you have to learn a balance on that, because sanguines like to promote themselves, and they like to have the approval of others. So a lot of times they'll stick themselves out front, So a sanguine is goal-oriented, like a choleric. A choleric is goal-oriented, and a sanguine is also goal-oriented. But the difference is this, that a choleric is all action toward the goal, okay? And a choleric is action is the goal, okay? You need to understand the difference. A choleric is act to get to the goal. The goal of a sanguine is to act, okay? It's like the old redneck saying, "Hey, y'all, watch this." That's a sanguine, okay? That's they'll go to a theme park, ride every ride on the roller coaster. They're the ones leading the charge. "Hey, let's go do this. Let's go this. You want to go out Saturday night? Let's go. Hey, I tell you what, let's go roll somebody's yard. Hey, let's stay up all night. Woo, we'll watch movies all night. Hey, come on, come over to my house." That's a sanguine personality and temperament. And so you need to understand that. We talked about how cholerics are soldiers. We talked about how melancholies are saints. We talked about how phlegmatics are the shepherds. But today we're going to look at the star. The sanguine is the star, okay? They are the ones that are always going to be out front. They're the ones that's going to get recognition. They're the ones that people are going to brag on. It's just a natural thing, because their personality puts them out there. It gets them hurt sometimes. That going out front, just in a natural thing, not trying to be better than anybody, but a lot of times they are better. They're just better. They're better, a lot of times better singers, better speakers. They're better ball players sometimes, because they naturally want to be out front. So there you have it, the dogs of our society. You've got the St. Bernard Melancholies. You've got the Golden Retriever Phlegmatics. You've got the Rottweiler Cholerics. And you've got the Jack Russell Sanguines. Now, number 2, here's what we want to study today. First thing we want to study is the spontaneity of Simon Peter. Write that down. The spontaneity of Simon Peter. The second thing we want to learn about is the intimacy of Simon Peter, the sanguine, because Peter was a sanguine. So we're going to learn the spontaneity of Simon Peter. We're going to learn the intimacy of Simon Peter. And then we're going to learn the attraction of Simon Peter. The spontaneity, the intimacy, and the attraction. Sanguines can pull people in. They are naturally magnetic, okay? They are sensation seekers. They go on their emotions, what they feel. They're going to be the ones that lead in worship in the church. They're going to be ones that shout. Not necessarily that everyone can't shout, but they'll be more prone to be vocal in the church. And as a sanguine, you need to understand that God made you that way so you could lead in the emotional part of a service, in the amens, in the hallelujahs, in the singing, in the worship, in the lifting up of your hands. My wife was born mostly phlegmatic. She's adapted. She's now melancholy and phlegmatic. But for the most part, as a child and as a teenager, she was so laid back. And she used to always say, "I'm a crier, not a shouter." You know why? That was her natural temperament, was to just sit back. Now, I was a sanguine. First time she ever saw me, I was 10 years old, running around the camp meeting shouting at Back to Bethel camp meeting in China Grove, because I'm a sanguine. Man, I wanted to shout. I wanted to get out there. Whoa, whoa, whoa. So you need to understand that we are sensation seekers. Because of that, sometimes we lack depth in our relationship with God. We're fly-by-nighters. We just all over the place. And so a lot of times it's a very shallow, if you're not careful, a sanguine can be a very shallow person. They can have a very shallow relationship with God. They can have a very shallow relationship with others. And so we need to understand that. That's important. Now, this is number 3. I want you to list these, and you may have to go back and get these. You can always press, go back on your recording here. Here are 14 characteristics of a sanguine. Good characteristics, strengths, okay? Number 1, they enjoy life, okay? They enjoy life. 2, they're optimistic, okay? 3, they're friendly. Sanguines are the friends. You can look back in your high school days, your college days, and you can point out, hey, that guy was a sanguine. That's why he acted like that. And that girl was a sanguine. That's why she was always out front. They're compassionate. Sanguines are passionate people. They are magnetic. I mentioned that. They're magnetic in their personality. Number 6, they talk with a sense of humor. Okay? They've always got the punchline. They've always got the comeback. They're not the wittiness. They don't have the wittiness of a phlegmatic. Phlegmatics are very dry in their humor, and they have wittiness. I'll give you an illustration. If you're a member of Thanks to Calvary, Brock Spann. Brock Spann is a phlegmatic. Brock is witty. He's in the background. He's quiet. He's reserved. But at the right moment, when he takes an opportunity, he'll come out with some wittiness. Sanguines aren't that way. We, a lot of times, in our humor, we might think it's funny, but everybody else may think it's offensive. And half the time they may laugh at us, and half of the time they may say, you shouldn't have said that. So we're talkers with a sense of humor. Storytellers. I was watching Lydia last night on Facebook telling the story of Noah to our children, and I thought, you little sanguine, she can just roll it out there. It's just a natural thing of her temperament. They're entertaining. Number 8, entertaining. Okay? A lot of times your musicians, your singers, your actors are all sanguine in personality and temperament. They're charming. A sanguine can charm someone. They can make somebody feel 10 feet tall. Okay? They are optimistic. I've already said that. They're cheerful. So there's only 13 of these. There's only 12 of these because I listed optimistic and friendly twice. They are cheerful. Okay? Number 10, they are cheerful. We're happy. Now, we get very depressed, and we'll talk about that next lesson. We have high highs and low lows. But when we're high and cheerful. Then we're enthusiastic. Again, that goes back to the same thing. Number 11 and number 12, this is one that's very important. They are creative and colorful. Okay? Sanguines add color to life. Okay? It's a strength. They're the ones that can cheer people up when everything's going bad. All right? Now, let's talk about 4 things. I want to look at 4 things in the life of Simon Peter. And I want you to list these out. This is the outline. It's not alliterated or anything, but this is the outline. Number 1, Okay, and I think this is, let's see, this will be number 4 on your homework. Number 1, and put these underneath this. Let's just head it as the personality traits of Simon Peter. All right, first of all, a sanguine has a God-given ability to live in the present. Okay, this is a strength. It can also be a weakness, but today we're going to look at it as a strength. They have the God-given ability to live in the present. A sanguine's definitely insecure, definitely fearful. We're extrovert, and I say we're because this is still one of my personality traits. We put ourselves out there, but a lot of times it's because of insecurities. Okay, a lot of times a sanguine will push himself forward just because he's so insecure. Where you take a phlegmatic, his insecurity is going to make him withdraw. All right, Donathan has sanguine in him, and he says the dumbest things at the wrong time because of insecurity. Donathan, I know you're watching this. That's part of your sanguine, but it can be a strength because we live in the present. Did you know Peter spoke more in the Gospels than any of the other disciples? In fact, there's 94 times that Peter spoke out in the Gospels. 94 times. One of those instances was in the story of the Mount of Transfiguration, Matthew chapter 17, verse 4. Then answered Peter, see that spontaneity, that impulsiveness? Then answered Peter and said unto Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. Woohoo! He's cheerful, emotionally driven, okay? Caught up in the moment. If thou wilt, let us make here, he's a problem solver, that's a strength of the sanguine, 3 tabernacles, one for thee, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. I mean, he's just, wow, I'm so excited. That is the sanguine. They live in the moment. And he forgot about the situation down at the bottom of the hill. All right, living for the moment. But that's a God-given ability. Look what the Bible says in Matthew 16, 18. Because, listen, we wouldn't have these great statements by Peter if he were not spontaneous. And so it's not necessarily all the time a weakness. It is a strength. It makes life exciting. Matthew 16, 18. Jesus is being attacked by the Pharisees, and he says, whom say ye that I am? And who, Mr. Sanguine, Peter, spontaneity, jumps out and said, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. No concern about the consequences, because he didn't think, man, if I say this, people are going to want to kill me because I'm going totally against the Jews and the temple and the Sanhedrin, but he was spontaneous. And sanguines will take a stand, and they'll be spontaneous in that. No other disciple suffered as much reproof from the Lord as Peter did, because that same strength of being outspoken and spontaneous and taking a stand can also get you in trouble if you're not led by the Spirit when you should do that. Okay, and that's very important. One time Jesus even said, get thee behind me, Satan. Okay, you're an offense to me, because Peter spoke out. But that spontaneity, living in the moment, is so good. A lot of times a melancholy is going to be slow to react. Okay, they got to weigh everything out. And you need the sanguines in the church that will make the motion. The cholerics will lead, but the sanguines can also lead because they're not afraid to be spontaneous. Oh yeah, preacher, you want to buy that church van? I'm for it. I make a motion. And so that's important, that you use that spontaneity. They have the ability given by God to live for the moment. Number 2, let's show you this. Here's another strength that I want to give you today. They can enter into, this is number 2 this is the second thing on number 4 of your homework. They can enter into other people's feelings. They can enter into the thoughts and feelings of another person. The Bible said in Matthew chapter number 18 and verse number 21, then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Till 7 times? And Jesus said unto him, and I say unto thee, until 7 times, not until 7 times, but until 70 times. Now, Peter shows that he's entering into the feelings and thoughts of other folks. He feels the need of approval, and he needs forgiveness, and he needs to be connected. Okay, One thing that's beautiful about a sanguine is they can connect with people. A sanguine temperament is so gracious with the elderly. They are great Sunday school teachers because they touch and feel. They can feel the child, that the hurt, and they can feel the lack of understanding. They can feel the insecurities of a child in a Sunday school class. They can feel the pains of an elderly person. It is a great trait of a sanguine. They know how to connect. They know how to feel what somebody else is feeling. I remember when I was a boy, I was 16 years of age, and the church where Dad pastored was having a sweetheart banquet, a Valentine meal. And I didn't take a girl to it, all right? I didn't have a girlfriend at the time, didn't want a girlfriend at the time. I was just living life as a sanguine. And so there was two little ladies in our church. One's name was B. Hughes, and one name, we called her Queen, Malden. And Ma B and Queen, they were close to 80, 75 to 80 years old. Well, I walked in church one day, and they were sitting together, and I said, "Girls, y'all going to the sweetheart banquet?" And they said, "No." I said, "Well, y'all go with me." And I asked them to be my dates to the sweetheart banquet. And here I was, 16 years old. I went and picked them up. I had them both a rose apiece, and gave them each a rose, and took them to the sweetheart banquet, and we had one on each arm, and they were my sweethearts for that night, and they had the best time. Both of them's in heaven now. And you say, "Well, man, that's crazy." No, you know what that was? That was my personality, wanting to make them feel good and wanting them to have a big time. A sanguine has that ability. It's God-given compassion. Sanguines make great soul winners because they can enter into the thoughts and feelings of a sinner. And so that's a very important trait. Then let me give you this one. This is a third one under the strengths of Simon Peter. They're tender and sympathetic. It goes kind of back to what I was just talking about, but we see this in John chapter 6, verse 66. From that time, many of his disciples went back and walked no more with him. Then said Jesus unto the 12, "Will ye also go away?" Then Simon Peter answered him, "Lord, to whom shall we go? Thou hast the words of eternal life." Do you see how Peter is tender, even with the Lord? Now, he messed up a few chapters later when he denied the Lord. Again, that spontaneity, living in the moment, that's a weakness as well. But he was tender with the Lord. And so we see that as a great strength of Simon Peter. He has the ability to live in the present. He has the ability to feel and think of others, enter into the feelings and thoughts of others. He has the ability to be tender and sensitive. And then here, number 4, the strength of Simon Peter is in Matthew 16:18. He has the potential to live an abundant life. Okay? This is a great strength of a sanguine. A sanguine has the ability to have an unbelievably abundant life. I mean, just a party life. And I'm not talking about drugs and alcohol and dancing, and I'm talking about a sanguine can have the happiest life because he knows how to have a good time. With that, flip side, he's got to be careful because a sanguine can get himself in trouble by taking a party too far. Okay? Matthew 16:18, "Thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." Here's faulty, emotional, insecure Peter, yet he had the potential of becoming a great leader of faith. In Luke chapter number 22, we see that he's brash, and he's emotional, and he's susceptible. When he said, "I'm ready to go with you to prison and to death," okay, that's a sanguine. They make promises they can't deliver. And Jesus said, "All you, the men I'm going to be betrayed. You're going to be offended me." He said, "No, I won't be offended." Again, that spontaneity. But the thing is, he was willing to act when no one else would act. He was willing to act when no one else would act. And that is so important for an abundant life. Because a sanguine's not afraid to step out, make investments. A sanguine's not afraid to take a new job. A sanguine's not afraid, to take on a new ministry. He is willing to put himself out there. And a lot of times If you don't take risk, you're not a success. And, of course, with risk comes the potential for failure, but the risk also brings potential for success. Where you've got a melancholy personality, sometimes will not take the risk, and they hold themselves back by not putting themselves out there. Phlegmatic doesn't have that drive, to be a success. A lot of times they're satisfied with the way things are, but a sanguine will go for the gusto, and a lot of times they're great successes because of it. All right, we see Peter's sanguine coming out at the tomb when he ran ahead, ran to the sepulchre, didn't give a thought to the consequences that were going to be coming with him going to the tomb. And so, we see that. It's amazing. And I want you to study that even more. Sanguines are the stars, okay? Sanguines are the stars. They make life lighter. They're playful. They're fun-loving. Kids love sanguines. And but the next lesson, we're going to talk a lot about the faults and failures of a sanguine. But they're great personalities. All four of these have great traits that we're looking at. But you just need to find the balance on your personality, your temperament, to make sure that your failures are being controlled by the Spirit and your strengths are being loosened by the Spirit. And as you see your strengths go up and your failures go down, you can live the best life for the Lord that God intended you to be. Very personable. Sanguines are. They're warm, they're lively, they're receptive, they cheer up the world, they have an easy come, easy go attitude. They never lack for friends. And, so sanguines are awesome in that respect. But don't miss next week because next week we're going to talk about the failures. Because where sanguines can be unbelievably awesome in one area, they can be terrible in another. And that's just the truth with all these. God bless you. I hope you enjoyed the lesson today.